watch Zani kit. Oh wait, you're right.
I took.
In case anybody gets the wrong idea, all that kind of stuff again, because every single time when I talk about Watering Waves, people are gonna say, oh my god, I'm attacking the company, whatever, right? I'm not saying that Watering Waves is gonna make Zani useless. I'm not saying that Watering Waves is gonna be like power grid, all that kind of, there's no comparison. It's just something that could happen because I've seen it happen, right? In real time, in HSR, right? It's happened before, and it's a gacha game, right? So just my 2 cents. It is what it is, right?
A good long gander the other day live on stream at Zani's kit and went over it, and I came to the conclusion that it is so absurdly convoluted and confusing that it's worth just making an on-paper guide for you guys. And hopefully, in layman's terms, I do a pretty good job explaining to you how her kit functions, the role of it, and what your goals are to do with this character, as well as some of the pros and cons of her kit. And that's pretty much what this video is for. Okay, so Zani's kit in a nutshell, trying to be as simplistic as I can without making it too overly complex or confusing to the viewer. She's a heavy attack specialist, which, by the way, she only can use her heavy attacks inside of her ultimate, which means she's pop ult reliant as well. She's counter attack centric, which means you're going to be relying on counter attacks to bring the most out of her kit. I'll explain that later. And then Resonance Liberation Reliant. We're going to go over all the details. It's neatly organized. But here's one of the important details of her kit that's problematic. She needs teammates to apply Spectral Frazzle, meaning she can't apply it herself. She has nothing in her kit that specifies applying Spectral Frazzle herself, which means you absolutely need at least one other teammate to apply Spectral Frazzle. Why, Smack? Why is this the case? Because Spectral Frazzle gives her Ember stacks, which, by the way, they stack up to 60 stacks in total, and those 60 stacks can be converted into a 600% multiplier that can be utilized on her outro skill. You know how I think Phoebe has a ridiculous outro skill as well? So does Zani. Zani has a outro skill that's gonna hit like a fucking truck. But that's not the whole purpose. In fact, that's not even why it's so important. Ember stacks are important because as soon as you get Ember stacks, they convert into Blaze, which is her forte circuit. And Blaze converts into a multiplier for her heavy attacks inside of her ult. And her heavy attacks inside of her ult hit like a truck. They hit for about 400% based off of what I've seen. And the Blaze can be converted into another like 400% or somewhere around there. So imagine Zani hitting 3 times with a heavy attack inside of her whole ult with that massive fucking claymore, that great sword from Monster Hunter. Imagine 800%, 800%, 800%, 2400% multiplier of basic attacks that are heavy attacks, obviously. And the crazy thing about that, she has an ult.
The crazy thing about that is, after all that, me Baba's enhanced basic is 4,000. Me Baba clears Zani, bro.
Ultimate that nukes on top of that. And so we're looking
Wait, chat, by the way, how is this information here, by the way? Where the gachas might get this? It's not leakers, right? Where did this come from? It's official? Oh, okay, then it doesn't matter.
Right, probably about a 3,600 multiplier. 3,600.
Hey, actually, yo, you know what? We're gonna slap this on the main channel.
100%
W gachas
on the
Mac,
dome
W
with
gachas
the
Mac.
3 heavies on top of the finishing ultimate inside of her ult. We're talking about somebody hitting so hard with basic attacks. You've never seen this before.
Holy
You've never seen
shit.
somebody hit this hard with heavy attacks.
You know what's
right?
harder?
It's probably going to be like 100K, 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 100K. So you remember Arataki Ito back in the Genshin Impact days when he first came out?
Who?
Nobody's seen somebody hit so fucking hard with just basic attacks, bro. It was just fucking bam, bam, bop, bop, bop. That's how I envision Zani's. Now, this is purely descriptive of what...
Wait, so Zani is gonna be an Arataki Ito? Bro, I haven't seen anyone use Ito for like the past 3 years, bro. Wait, she's Arataki Ito. Wait, do I just skip her then? That's crazy.
what I've seen on paper, but that's what I'm thinking she's
not yet.
gonna
I'll
hit
open my ML for
for
this.
when she releases, which is in the next 48 hours. So, with
24, by the
all
way.
that being
That's intolerant.
explained to you, it's very important that you have people applying Spectral Frazzle stacks. In fact, now that you understand that, I think her best team might very well be, I know this sounds crazy, it might very well be Phoebe and Spectral Rover, just because they're gonna be able to funnel those fucking stacks over to her like that, to where she's gonna have ample blaze, and then the blaze is then gonna be converted into attacks for her ult, and it's gonna pop off. Not to mention a whole different beast. She has dual scaling. on her heavy
Dual
attacks. This is
scaling.
also why she's going to hit like a truck. So in her Resonance Liberation, when you pop her ult, it
Dual
enables
scaling.
her heavy attacks to scale off of both heavy attack and Spectral Frazzle multipliers.
Okay.
You guys who don't know the math don't understand how fucking absurd this is, because heavy attack is going to basically entail all of the additive damage multipliers you receive, right? Increase spectral damage, increase heavy attack damage from the substats. All the little multipliers you get from team building are going to go in to increasing those heavy attacks from an additive standpoint. But then apart from that, she gets a Spectral Frazzle multiplier, and this is an amplify. It's not an increase, which means it's multiplicative. It's a separate multiplier. So her heavy attack has dual scaling in a broken way, provided you have a fucking Phoebe on your account, because Phoebe gives 100% Spectral Frazzle amplification. Not
First of all, bro, Phoebe, and I mean this genuinely, right? Phoebe is the best thing that happened in the Watering Waves community. Genuinely, right? If you want any of your Watering Waves streamers, right? Janazad, myself, anyone that streams Watering Waves, they should.
What is Phoebe? Phoebe is Phoebe, but what is Phoebe if Phoebe is Phoebe? Phoebe is a Phoebe between Phoebe with Phoebe.
Yo, Zach, the 50 months. Yep, Phoebe is genuinely the best thing that happened in Watering Waves. I love the Phoebe emote so much. It is so good. And also, yo, to all of the streamers, right? If y'all don't have the white Phoebe, right? I'm talking about the white Phoebe, right? The white Phoebe is just the superior Phoebe, right? Don't use the stupid ass, baby ass, little small Phoebe, white Phoebe, right? First of all, that's the first. Okay, second, right? So, what if I don't have Phoebe? Is that okay? Is it okay? Okay, like no, I'm like genuine question. Why if I just don't have Phoebe? Yo, you
14 years holy.
It's fine, but noticeably worse. You will. Okay, I don't really care about whether or not you can clear content with or without Phoebe, but like the experience, you know, like the feeling of playing the unit. And I say this a lot for like Zenless Zones, right? Like the Shogun, right? The feeling of, especially when it comes to this kind of like action-based gacha games, where like the ability to feel of how you play this unit, whether or not you can clear the end game is the secondary, right? The primary is, does it feel good to play? And like, you know, if I can, for example, if I can don't use P, right? Let's just say I use like I don't know, Spectral Rover with like Shopkeeper and Zani. Alright, I can still clear. But like, if it feels bad, then it feels like Jiao Qiu loves Acheron. Okay, to be fair though, Acheron on release, before Jiao Qiu was even a thing, she was was chilling, right? Because Jiao Qiu had a period, I think like quite a couple of patches where we didn't even have Jiao Qiu, right? I mean Acheron, and she was still doing very, very well. At least back in that generation. The thing is, right now we already have access to Phoebe. So what if you just don't? It's like characters with 3B and Ranmei. If future AODPS wants Air Rover, then we have HMC, RMC issue. Oh wait, that's actually so true. Wait, that's actually so fucking true. Wait, that's actually so true. So, assuming that the best store right now is gonna be Phoebe plus Spectral Rover, right? So it's a little bit like Ranmei plus HMC. But if in the future, you want to change HMC to RMC, you take away HMC. But the thing is, there's no replacements for HMC. Is that what I'm saying? So even if you have Phoebe, you run it with Zani, but you will be missing that the key to basically generate the stacks as fast as possible, right? Technically, nobody knows how Zani feels. Because yeah, that's fair, right? Have to check the multipliers. Zani Acheron is only chilling back then because of power level scaling is much higher than the 1.x DPS. That is true. You'll just put on Shopkeeper there pretty much. Okay. I guess I'm just a little bit concerned, like if players don't have the access to like a relatively substitutable unit, would it like feel bad to play? All right, that's pretty much it.
Additive, not increase, amplify, which means you're gonna take all of those multipliers, come up with one big number, and then Phoebe's gonna say, let's give it another 100%. Let's multiply it times 2, basically. So that's why Phoebe and everybody in the community is thinking, oh, you have to have Phoebe, you have to have Phoebe. But if I'm being honest with you, her signature weapon, plus she has a little multiplier in here somewhere, here it is. Her signature weapon plus this 20% Spectral Frazzle Amplify from Sunburst actually gives her in total a 70% multiplier. And so the 70% multiplier is a little bit shy of what P provides, but it's enough to like where her damage is just so big that it's not going to be a game changer. It's not going to be like insane. In fact, it would just be fucking overkill if you have Phoebe and her Sig. I'm only saying that for the people who think I need Phoebe. Now, you can be patient and wait for us to test these things. As soon as she comes out, I'm going to show you how she performs in 4K with Spectral Rover as soon as she arrives. But from what I've calculated, Phoebe is definitely going to be overkill and a little bit less than overkill too, which means very valuable, but not needed. I know that sounds like cope, but it's really not. Let's continue on. Scales for heavy attack and spectral frazzle, dual scaling, right? Consumes blaze for bigger multipliers. We've already went over that. Embers convert to blaze for Zani, 5 stacks per ember. This is what I was telling y'all about. This is why applying spectral frazzle is so important. It's because then it's going to convert those into blaze for 5 stacks per ember. And so let's say somebody like the spectral rover does his ult 6 stacks, does the enhanced skill 2 stacks. That's 8 stacks of spectral frazzle now converted directly into 8 stacks of helio embers. Those embers are now going to give you 8 times 5 blaze, which is 40 blaze. Crazy. See how that works?
Crazy.
And then another thing that's worth mentioning is when Zani pops her ultimate, she gets another 50 blaze just from popping the ult for free. So 50 plus 40, we're now at 90 blaze. It extends the cap to 150. We're only missing 60 more blaze to have 150 total blaze. Why is that important? Because every time Zani consumes blaze with her heavy attack, she consumes 40 of it. Now I want you to think about this for a second. If she consumes 40 blaze, and she only has 150 inside of her ult, that means after 3 hits, she's only gonna have 30 blaze remaining. That's exactly enough for you to be able to cast her ultimate immediately, because her ultimate has 2 conditions of being procced. Either you have 30 or less blaze, or 8 seconds has gone by. And so the rotations are gonna be quite interesting when she comes out. Now, are you a bit confused? You should be. Like I said, this girl's kit on paper is one of the most complex kits I've ever seen. Now, why is counterattack important? Smack, why are you saying she's counterattack centric? Well, she's counterattack centric more so for the meta slaves and the people who want to play her on an optimal level. Her counterattacks simply give her more benefits as opposed to you not using the counterattacks. Case in point, there's targeted action, and I put no perks next to it. This is if you hold down her freaking like charge ability, her skill, and nobody hits you. So you just like let it go on its own, or you just manually let it go and start doing your thing. You can do that and you're gonna do some damage. But if you do the forcible repost, which means you time it while somebody's about to attack you, what's gonna happen is you're actually gonna get a 30% damage reduction for 2 seconds, a decrease in vibration strength reduction by 10%, by the way, for easier shield breaking capabilities. You're also going to recover 10 blaze on the last stage of that counterattack. Oh, and I forgot one little perk in here. Stagnation occurs too when you counterattack. And then the final perk is when you do this in her sword mode, you get 20% spectral frazzle amplification on Zani. So that's another multiplicative amplification from Zani that occurs from either doing targeted action or forcible repost, which once again, forcible repost has all of the perks. The other thing about both of these abilities is they're considered spectral frazzle damage, which means they can take the 100% multiplier from Phoebe and any other spectral frazzle multipliers that you receive in the game. Massive. This also showed me that the shield mode is meh. The shield mode is really more so for just building up redundant energy so that you can use the sword mode, crisis response protocol. But using shield mode is definitely like the smallest value on her kit. It really is. So the way I would lay it out is you start off with Zani in shield mode, get the redundant energy filled up by doing basic attacks and maybe even pop a shield. Since it only has a 5-second cooldown, you can pop a resonant skill, it'll be back. Once redundant energy is fully filled up, you're now able to access the sword mode. This is outside of the ult, by the way. So the sword mode, you do a counter, which is called a forcible repost. That's going to give you stagnation to the enemy, 30% damage reduction, 10 blaze recovery, as well as an activation of sunburst, which is going to give you 20 spectral frazzle amplification. And you're going to get all those perks activated, which now enables you to pop her ultimate. Now, what's crazy is you only have a 14-second duration once you do this, which means once you go into her ultimate, you got 14 seconds to make use of that 20% spectral frazzle amplification that came from the sunburst. I know it's a lot of but basically you do need a bit of a like load up before just spamming ultimate. You're not just going spam ult as soon as Zani hits the field. No, you got to get your spectral frazzle stacks built up from MC or P first. You then got to go through this so that you can secure that 20% spectral frazzle amplify.
Okay, then I feel like at this point it's not really just like, okay, like the whole 100% spectral frazzle damage from like P or whatever, right? Like you're missing out the 100% damage amplification if you don't run Peep. Okay, the problem I see is if I don't have Peep, that means I can't even get the charge fast enough. And if I can't get a charge fast enough, doesn't really matter if I get my ultimate because I can't make use of that 156 limit. You know what I'm saying? Because it's gonna be, I use 3 hits, it's 120, I'm left with 30, but that's assuming that you can actually get a full 6. And that's because Peep is there for the generate in the first place, right? But if you don't have Peep, then you're down to removing the amplification aside. You have to get enough frazzle to get that charge. Essentially. You have to quick swap with Rover quite a bit. Because only Peep can stack 20. Yeah, I don't think there's any other unit that can be that high, essentially. Yeah, the stacking for the Frazzle, it is kind of annoying because she's essentially reliant quite a bit. Yeah, but it's not really just like the damage amplification from Peep, but it's more so like how fast can you get the stacks? Because that stack, it directly translates to how many of the enhanced attack you can do during the ultimate. You get what I'm saying? So... yeah. I mean, like, for me, it's not really a concern because I have Peep, right? And I said this word in Forbes' tweet as well. All right, Forbes tweeted out this. He was being a Peep salesman, by the way. He was being a Peep salesman. Okay, I think it's this one. Being hearing more people talk about the possible issues Zani might face if you don't have Peep, and the possible dilemma you may run into if you plan on using different forms of Rover, limiting your access to even spectral Rover solutions, more 4 stars Wandering Waves. I do feel Wawa rather slow flow of 4-star characters, 0 4 stars in the 4 patches of Rina Sita, by the way, is definitely one of its pitfalls at the current moment. And before anyone asks who uses the 4 stars, Sanhua, Mortevi, Baichi example have plenty of use. Okay, who the fuck uses... Okay, don't get me wrong, I will still bet you Zani can clear all content in the game without Peep, but I feel like this is worth discussing because what will you do as a player without Peep? And in the future, you want to use Rover for Aero team a lot, your Zani team will have nothing! Okay, I think I where's the part where I said this, guys? I don't know why it doesn't show. So I say if I don't have Peep, I'm greedy and stupid. It's a pretty interesting point of contention considering the fact that, you know, it does appear that she's like, what, Mibaba levels, right? Mibaba levels of like power scaling in terms of Wandering Waves. She should be the one that will basically creep everyone, especially if you have DPS and team.
And some little blaze build up in the process. Once you have all that stuff.
It was a joke, by the way. All right, it was a joke. All right, nobody needs to pull for any unit. All right, don't let any content creators tell you need to. It's you. Don't let anyone say you have to pull. You have to pull this to use. Doesn't work that way. Not a single gacha game say you have to pull this unit, right? Doesn't work, right? It's just a joke, right? Okay, anyways,
then you go into the ultimate so that you have all that shit backloaded and you can do maximum big dick damage. Now, for a casual, you might be thinking that sounds like a bit much. Again, this is just a player on an optimal level. On a casual level, just play the player however the hell you want to play her. I think you're still going to be impressed with what damage numbers she's pulling off. Down here, I don't really need to explain this to you guys. This is more so like just for you to read for your own benefit.
Just delete your account, yep.
It's all resonance liberation conditions and perks that you'll get. The last thing I want to mention to you though is when you're inside of her ultimate, some of the heavy attacks hit harder than the other heavy attacks. And you know the ones that hit harder and how you make them hit harder? Countering. Yep. So countering inside of her ult will also allow you to get access to the stronger heavy attacks. So that's once again why I said she's a counterattack centric character. That said, if you're not good at countering and you just do the regular attacks, she still hits like a fucking bus. She does. So that's why I was saying the balancing act with Zani, she's absolutely probably going to be one of my favorite characters, or she probably will be my favorite character that's ever been released, because there's so much complexity in her kit, but they still struck a balance between surface level enjoyment for the casuals and below surface level enjoyment for the hardcore players that really want to sink their teeth into her kit and make that shit pop off. Do you need Peep? No. But should you want Peep? Yes. Because my ideal team, based off of all the things that I've looked at,
what a
is going to be Male Rover, Peep, and Zani. One thing about Zani is because she has synergistic value with the Spectro set, the new one.
Yep.
She gets a free 20% crit rate, right? And then you rock all this crit rate on their sub stats inside of her kit, and then her freaking inherent stats have crit rate too. This bitch has like 100% crit rate with a crit damage main stat. So the last thing you got to worry about with Zani is her not having crit rate. She has plenty of that shit. So yeah, I think she's going to be an absolute monster of a unit. But if you skip Peeb, you just know you're going to see people 1,000,000,000% hitting a lot harder with Peeb, because that 100% spectral frazzle amplification bonus is fucking insane.
Dude, this genuinely reminds me a lot about like the whole Aircron situation back then. Like back in the days, bro. Yeah, like you don't. Okay, like I'm not talking about Jiao Qiu, right? I'm not talking about Jiao Qiu. I'm talking about a Signature Icon on launch. Very, very similar situations, which is you technically don't need her Signature Icon. Because at E0 S0 on launch, Aircron's damage was so high, she literally crapped the entire version 1 roster at E0 S0. Slap on Guna and Sleep Well, she did so much fucking damage. Nobody really cared the content back then, whether or not you had the access to the additional stack of stat streams for you to make use of it, right? And that has been the status quo for a very long time. But the thing is, right, you notice that the content, it does start to scale up more and more and more. And you'll find your need for I'm just not talking about Aircron and the Signature Icon, a lot more prevalent, because the battle, they start to last longer and longer, right? So the more turns you take with Aircron, every turn you take without a Signature Icon is -1 stack. And then they made Jiao Qiu into the game. So even though the unit for Aircron herself, it was fundamentally unchanged, right? She was a extremely strong DPS without Signature Icon, and this was before Jiao Qiu existed. But eventually, the content is not going to balance around the fact that your Aircron has no Signature Icon, or your Aircron has no Jiao Qiu, right? Because they will introduce all these mechanics that will make Aircron herself as a unit feel even better to play, right? I'm not sure how it's going to be like for Zani and everything, but I can't imagine a world where the content that Zani clears without Peep is going to be the status quo for like the entire time. I feel like eventually, like for example, right now in the present, you probably don't need Peep, right? Because it's going to be doing a lot of damage, right? Just like how Aircron don't need Signature Icon, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. You should have no problems clearing or any of the endgame content, right? But going for a couple of months, couple of patches down the road, right? I'm not sure if this thing will hold true anymore, because they either release more units that can match up to Zani's brand new power scaling, or they end up releasing more content that would drastically test what a Zani player could do without Peep compared to with Peep, right? And this will be, it is like the tried and true formula of pretty much every single gacha game, right? You first propose a unit before you propose a problem, right? It is a brand new unit. The unit is very fun. You're like the mommy vibes, you know, very, very interested in play. You don't need any of the new stuff, you know, E0, S0, fuck it, slap it on, you're gonna have a lot of fun. But eventually they're gonna offer the problem, right? They'll create the problem where the exact same unit that you put right now at this current point of time, it will no longer feel as fun to play, because problems are what drives people to get solutions, right? And then they release a solution in terms of Jiao Qiu, right? For this case, maybe you probably don't feel it yet, but when the content starts to scale, you might feel this happening in the solution of Peep. And honestly, nobody knows how this is going to be like going forward, because you won't really feel the impact, right? The Genshin, the impact of this, I would say for like a good couple of patches, right? Depending on how it's going to be going forward. But yeah, that's my 2 cents, right? That's my 2 cents.
That said, she's not.
All right, this is not HSR, I forgot, right? This game has no power creep. HSR, you know, disgusting levels of power creep, you know, absolutely, you're absolutely right, my bad.
Not a necessity, but goddamn it, she's valuable. Look forward to me dropping a actual guide, because this is just not enough to explain how her kit functions. I really need a hands-on experience to explain to you guys what you can do. She's got so many different like avenues of how you can do things with her. You gotta wait for people to like drop the guides. Yeah, this is a character that needs guides. Like I said, this is a character that actually isn't the brain dead, just press the button and shit, you know? But I look forward to dropping it for you. That's gonna wrap up this video. Peace, love, and happiness. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Bro, imagine the guy is basically, okay, pull Peep, and then you just win, right? Okay, but anyways, to sort of just wrap it up, right? Peep, Zani, very, very good. I do hope to see that we get a little bit more, because this is not really related to this is not really related to Peep specifically, but it's more so the 4 stars, because I don't think we have gotten a 4-star in a while. So it would be quite nice if we have a little bit more of an accessible option to the player base, where you want to essentially use their next best in slot, right, without going for the 5-star unit. Because considering the fact that we do have Zani, we have Calchona, Carteria hasn't even come out yet, and then all the rerun banners, having a couple of 4-stars here and there to just essentially act as like a placeholder, I think that would be pretty nice. All right, okay, cool. End of the video. What's the word of the day? Word of the day is gonna be beep. All right, join Twitch, join Discord, join Twitter, all the best. See you guys time. Take care.